On this week's episode, has the Terminator been terminated? Is there a need for another Ant-Man? And what are we looking forward to this Black Friday? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glasser from Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, Game Source, the Lakers Fast Break, and also Inside Sports Fantasy Football, welcoming you to another great episode of our Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is our destroyer of Cheetos for Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out what he's doing today at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, popculturecosmos.com, and also grab a copy of his book, Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. The destroyer of Cheetos, eh?
Yeah, you have no idea how much money I spend on laundry detergent. It's just all the time. It's just right across the shirt. You know, like in the old Pringles commercials, but it's just cheese everywhere. Also, have you ever noticed that, like, when you look at Chester the cheetah, he is kind of like that creepy uncle of chip mascots. Have you ever noticed that?
Well, let's just say Chester the cheetah was just going to be my joke that I was going to, but you beat me to the punch.
My bad. We can rewind this if you want to do this again. We can.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I'll just go ahead and go be like Chester Cheetah, just hop on my motorbike and head on out. Oh, yeah. But it is going to be a great episode we have for you today. It's just going to be Josh and I, no guests on. We're going to be talking about a lot of great stuff that's going on in pop culture. We're going to be talking about the Joker and R-rated films. There's still a ceiling where R-rated films are need to break, and that's $1 billion. We're going to talk about the possibility of an R-rated film breaking that ceiling coming up here in a bit. Plus, also as well, is there a possibility for an Ant-Man 3? We're going to tell you the latest details and news on it, and we're going to ask ourselves, is there even a need at this point in time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for an Ant-Man 3? Plus, also, Josh has some thoughts on a game that he's been playing called Children of Morta. Also, we're going to be talking also as well about some things that we're hoping to go on sale on Black Friday, because our Black Friday coverage is starting here very soon, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. We're going to give you constant updates on what's going on sale, some of the ads that have already been released out into the marketplace. So we're going to share some thoughts on what we hope will go on sale this Black Friday coming up later in the episode. And then on top of that, we're going to be talking about our 10 favorite films. For me, it's a reminder. For Josh, he's coming up with his list here that's fresh out of the gate. So we're going to talk about our 10 favorite films because we're asking you, what are your 10 favorite films all this month? Please send us your thoughts in, and we're going to talk about more about that, and we're going to talk about the reason why we want your 10 favorite films coming up on the back end of the episode as well. Well, my friend, unfortunately, it looks like to me, on the surface, hasta la vista, baby, when it concerns the Terminator franchise, because Terminator Dark Fate came out this weekend worldwide to many, many different countries, including here in the United States. And unfortunately, it did not do quite so well. It came out this weekend here domestically at about $29 million. Not exactly the type of opening that they wanted. In fact, it's at least $10 million below expectations. And I had said before on our last episode, the PCC Multiverse, that I thought the movie cost right around 100 to 125 million. I'm sorry. This was closer to 200 million. In fact, 185, 200 million, right in that range. That's the production cost, not even including any promotional costs or anything else as far as distribution or anything of that nature. So the estimates are now, because of the opening, not the week opening, not only here in the United States, but also the fact that it only garnered another 100 million worldwide. The fact it could be, the thing is now that the studios are looking to maybe get as much as a $100 to $125 million loss on this movie, Terminator Dark Fate. I ask you, my friend, and I ask this fair, and I ask you to take some time to think about this because of the fact that, again, it came out with such a soft opening. And this was for a movie that wasn't a very poorly rated film. It has 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has an okay Metacritic. It's thought of, for the most part, okay. It's got a B+ cinema score. People seem to like it that actually go see it. But it looks like there's not much love left for the Terminator franchise. So I ask you, my friend, is it time to go ahead and say hasta la vista, baby, to the Terminator franchise once and for all?
I don't know, man. Like I don't think it's time to really like say goodbye to it as much as maybe do some kind of campaign to reinvigorate interest in the old Terminator films, if that makes sense. Like what was wrong about the release of Dark Fate, at least in my opinion, was that like usually back in the day, stores would have all the old films lined up, and they come with a like $7.50 off a movie ticket or whatever. But they had huge campaigns to push the older films out so people could watch them before the movies came out. Terminator Dark Fate had zero marketing that I saw. I saw maybe 2 or 3 trailers on TV, a bus sign, but I didn't really see a lot that would make me interested in it. I didn't even see a lot of reminders that it was out there until reviews started popping up. So I think, if they're going to make another one, if they don't put this franchise to bed after this, this incident, they need to have some kind of campaign go out there that makes people interested in the old films, because a lot of people, they don't care, right? Because the Terminator Salvation, Terminator Genesis was awful. Nobody even knew it was in theaters. And then Terminator Salvation before that, like that was the last semi-decent Terminator movie. And that's because when I was in high school, when that came out, I was still connected to the franchise because I had grown up in the 90s, right? So, but they had such a big gap between Salvation, and Genesis.
But then also you got to consider Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines.
Yeah, that's true also, but Salvation seemed to be like the last kind of legitimate entry in the franchise before they felt like with like Genesis, they didn't know what they wanted to do. Do they want to reboot it? They want to make a sequel? They had no idea. And I think that when filmmakers have little faith in their creations, it makes people not have faith in it themselves. They don't really care to see it. And I think this movie, there's such a big gap between this movie and the generation of people that grew up on Terminator that it kind of missed its mark. And while film reviewers are reviewing it really well, it's too much too late. If that, is that what does that make too much? Is it too little too late or too much? I'm sorry. But you get what I'm saying? Like it's the same thing with Blade Runner, right? Like it missed an entire generation of people that didn't see the first one. So I think that the issue here is not that it needs to be put to bed, but they need to do something to make themselves seem relevant again.
Well, you're speaking of Blade Runner, my friend, and I want to ask you this.
Okay.
It is November 2019. And remember, that's what we've been seeing in the news lately. So your thoughts on the fact that, November 2019 is the time period of the original Blade Runner. And unfortunately, we do not live fortunately, we do not live in the world of Blade Runner as it was, because that wasn't exactly the most cheery place to live in. So I ask you, is it kind of interesting the fact that now people are comparing all these things about what happened in that time period and as far as November 2019 to, with Blade Runner and all that?
Well, parts of San Diego are kind of a dump, and I don't know if we're not replicas because, we all kind of seem to get mad at people who think different things than us. So there might be some replicas out there. We don't know, but yeah, I know. It's kind of like the Back to the Future hoverboard thing, right? Everyone thought that there would be a hoverboards going around by now, but it's just, I think we're actually approaching that with a lot of the old sci-fi films, right? We're starting to approach the years that a lot of those took place. So it's interesting. Like I'm curious, if there are more sci-fi films going forward, what is the year that, we are going to be predicting our stories take place in?
Fair enough. That would be interesting. At least maybe 2077, 2082, 2103, or something like that. That'd be really
Doesn't
cool.
Halo takes place in 20? 35 or something like that. I don't remember the exact dates of that, but yeah, we're like coming up on Halo time too.
We're not even close to that type of interstellar travel. But you know what? Things are a little different when you were heading back to what we're talking about with the Terminator, because that was also a period where by now we would have been overrun by the machines, and we would have been nothing but a post-apocalyptic society, and the world would have been destroyed. We tried to nuke it, and unfortunately, we burned the sun, and all that stuff, and the world's all gray. Then you get into the Matrix, which just pretty much looks like the same thing. So yeah, it's kind of funny how these things turn out, and all these visions that people had of the future, and in many ways it hasn't turned out like that. But it's kind of interesting, I should say.
It is. Like, in modern parallel, would you compare a company like Skynet to maybe Apple or like the NSA or something?
Possibly, or even Facebook to an extent as well, especially the way that they're not exactly the most favored choice among many right now, the way they go ahead and do go about their business. But that's another story and podcast altogether when it concerns that company. And the fact that they kind of ban you when you want to promote your show and you don't want to pay for it, but we won't go there. Anyways, so it is Terminator Dark Fate. And I want to ask you this, man, because getting back to the Terminator discussion, and it's kind of funny because we're now at a point where the Terminator series to me looks dead, and it looks like something that you need to put at the back coffers, you need to put in the attic, you need to store it away. You need to lock the key, put it in some type of trunk, so that somebody maybe opens it up maybe in about 20, 30 years from now, along with some other once vaunted franchises, what I've talked about before in the past. I've talked about Predators. I've talked about Predator. I've talked about Alien. And I think both those have to go out to pasture for quite some time. I think there are other ones as well. In fact, I know there was a Die Hard 6 that was being talked about, but Disney kind of nixed that. And I think that's probably another one that needs to go to pasture as well. So I want to ask you, my friend.
Oh, sorry. With Die Hard, you could tell it needs to go to pasture when they're like, the next one should be a prequel.
Yeah, I know. And that's something that I think no one really wants to see at this point. I think that the fact that there should be no more McClanes running around trying to go ahead and be in the middle of blown up buildings and all that, I think it's been done to death at this point in time. I know we've talked about in the past about Alien and that, but I know you're still hopeful on the Alien series that it could be done right at some point down the line. I think now that it's in Disney's hands, I don't think they have any desire to. I think along with Predator and the fact that they probably want to put both far away in the coffers, I think at this point in time, I just don't think there's any good captivating stories that's going to get a large enough audience to go ahead and even make its money back at this point in time with either Terminator, Alien, Predator, all these different movies that were so iconic in the late 80s, early 90s, that type of deal. I think the time is done. I think it's time to go ahead and create new Terminator, new Alien, new Predator, new Die Hard franchises, because at this point in time, the nostalgia effect on all those franchises I think are up.
Oh, sorry. So do you think that they need to put the franchise to bed, or do you think they need to just reboot them? Or do you think that something new needs to come up?
They need to put them to bed. I mean, they tried to reboot them, and it still hasn't worked. So
what would be smart on their part is to do, because I know that nobody likes to experiment with like new properties these days, but I feel like, Terminator, Alien, Predator, like there's enough good ideas in there to take things that work with audiences and put them into something new that has a story that's more modern, I guess, and parallels more to the time that we're living in, that would maybe pull in a more modern audience, but keeping that concept still the same.
I mean, you don't even have the same magic with the Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter to an extent, because the Fantastic Beasts, the last one failed. I know. I still think with the Harry Potter, I think if they did something, and as far as whatever the play, the as far as that was made by J.K. Rowling, that if they did that in the form of a movie with the original Harry Potter actors, I think you can get maybe one, two, or maybe even a trilogy out of it that would generate that kind of money. With the Fantastic Beasts, it just shows that if it doesn't have the actual Harry Potter in there, that it really, I just don't think it's going to garner or continue to garner that type of money. With the Lord of the Rings, even though the movies after the Lord of the Rings still made a large chunk of money, you saw the declining interest in the overall type of money that it could generate and type of interest that it was generating. It no longer became special for the Hobbit movies once they came out. They thought it was just prolonging the franchise. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to the Lord of the Rings series. I know you and I are still excited for that, so maybe that's another way they can generate that type of interest. And that's something with maybe all these series that we're talking about as a movie entity. Maybe most, or if not all of them, should be maybe streaming or pushed towards a streaming service. Maybe that's a way you can revive all these, maybe, either dead or on its way to a death type franchises.
Well, yeah, I think that many new form like Terminator, Lord of the Rings, like if you were to breathe life into those, it would not be on the big screen because like I've mentioned so many times before, things outside of Disney or Marvel just don't do well anymore. So with Terminator's Fox, right?
I believe so. I'd have to look that up. I know Disney was part of the distribution for outside the U.S., so I'd have to look that up for sure. And I can do that while you're talking, because the fact is, I want to hear your thoughts more on if any of these, these franchises that have come upon hard times like Alien, Predator, Terminator, they can all, if any of them can be revived in a small screen format. I mean, we've seen that before with the Sarah Connor Chronicles, which was very much appreciated by critics, but didn't really garner a large audience.
Yeah, but it was also on network television. So if you look on like Netflix, we can do things that we hadn't done before. But like my point from before was that things do better on streaming services now because people don't go to see movies that often. If it's not like a Disney or Marvel or Star Wars flick, people aren't going to see a lot of films anymore. And like that's evident in the fact that box office numbers have dropped. But on the other side of that coin, like I feel like a streaming service is good because you have all these directors who make these great movies and so many clips get cut by the studio. So there's an opportunity for them to be able to tell their story in a longer format and go into more detail so that people are watching it and they don't fall behind on details because you have time to constantly be pounding it into the brains of the viewers. So yeah, I think that streaming services are a very magical opportunity, not just for these franchises to be revitalized, but just for them to become relevant again and be able to hook people and maybe start from a place that's easier for people to jump onto as opposed to like, Terminator 6 or Die Hard 7 or whatever it is. They can kind of start at a point where people can latch onto these characters without needing all of this crazy amount of all this years and years and years of backstory, from all the time that these films have been around.
Terminator is a Paramount property, at least here domestically, but it is internationally being distributed by Disney. And, well, it's actually doing better internationally, but still not garnering those high numbers. In fact, China, it didn't even do that much. And it didn't even do that well in China, comparatively speaking. So the series right now with Terminator, I think, is something that needs to be put to rest. I don't think you're going to get even James Cameron's weight that he pulls around in Hollywood. I don't even think he can get that. I don't think he can get a sequel to this movie greenlit. In fact, it's going to be even for Alita: Battle Angel, which earned over $400 million worldwide. That is even going to have a tough time getting greenlit, and that is a James Cameron produced property as well. So
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that I want to hear the rest of your thought, but do you think that the, I guess, quote unquote, failure of Terminator is going to affect Avatar at all?
That's actually a very good question. And I was actually thinking about that about 10 minutes ago, thinking that, is this going to play out somewhat when Avatar 2 comes out? I think there's going to be an interest to Avatar 2. I do not think it's going to make $2 billion. I don't think it's going to beat Avengers Endgame. I think that Avatar, as Rob McCallum always says, Avatar did not gain a cultural footprint which people enjoyed year after year after year, like the Star Wars or the Star Wars, Marvel's, Marvel universe, or any of the other universes that have had any kind of longevity. It was a great thing for 1 year to a worldwide audience, and then that's pretty much it. I mean, by the time 2-3 years down the line, people were clearancing and discounting and just trying to get rid of any of the Avatar related merchandise they could get their hands on. So I think this could be a telling sign that Avatar may not get the humongous numbers that it once did for the original, but an Avatar 2 is still, even if that's the case and it does less than half, it's still $1 billion movie. So it's still something that I think you should greenlight, even if it costs $300 to $400 million to make, which is probably what it's going to cost. It's probably going to cost around Endgame money, but I think it's probably not going to do as well as they're thinking. But then again, that all leads to these signs, these things that are sprinkled out there. I think you're right, is what you're saying in regards to the failure of Terminator Dark Fate. And not only does it mean the end of this franchise for at least a foreseeable future, in my opinion, but also it means, for something that's James Cameron related, he no longer has that sprinkle of magic like he did with Titanic and with Avatar, when just his name would just garner huge returns.
Well, so before we shut down this topic, what do you think though about all the drama that was going on behind the scenes with Tim Miller and James Cameron? Because I heard Tim Miller, like, he pretty much got kicked out of the director's chair for a majority of the film. So what do you think about all that?
Well, I mean, that's probably what you're going to hear in the coming days and weeks. I mean, the film itself has garnered positive reviews for the most part. So the film itself is probably going to be something you're going to see in streaming or cable and say, hey, this wasn't such a bad flick. But it's going to be something that it wasn't such a bad flick. And then you're going to forget about it 10 minutes after. It's not going to be something that's going to stay with you. And I think that's the problem for the Terminator series at this point, is because even if you came out with a good movie, it really doesn't matter because no one cares anymore about the Terminator franchise.
Yeah. I mean, I just hope that, okay, so I look at it this way. Like, I think about, does this mean that James Cameron no longer has the ability to appeal to a modern audience? And also, what's this going to mean for the future with Tim Miller? It's just it seems like there's too many cooks in the kitchen with this. So I wonder if maybe if it had a singular vision, if it would have appealed more to make people want to go see the movie.
Well, Tim Miller's always got a job. He made Deadpool, so he's always got a job. The thing is, though, if he had problems with James Cameron and he had problems with everything was going on in regards to trying to go ahead and make Deadpool 2 that he was kicked out of, or he left, or whatever creative differences you want to say. If that's the case, Tim Miller is going to get it. Tim Miller still will find a job directing, but it's just going to be those situations where people are going to be wary in Hollywood of working with him because he leaves that trail behind him of being somewhat difficult, if that's the case, and that comes out to light. I'm not sure 100%, but it's starting that you can start connecting the dots here, man, because he should have been the director of Deadpool 2, and he wasn't. And he jumped right into the Terminator franchise, directed a halfway decent film, but that still didn't help because, again, like I said, I think the Terminator franchise is done. I don't know how you feel, my friend, but I think you're leaning in that same way yourself.
Yeah, like I said, I'll watch this, when it hits on demand or Redbox or whatever, but it's not something I'm going to rush to the theaters to see. So it perhaps, like, after watching it, and having it sit for a few months, like, I will have a different opinion of it. But right now I don't see, especially with this bad reception, like, there's nothing really that's going to motivate any company to want to make something of a sequel to it.
You're right, my friend. I think this is the time that Paramount says, hasta la vista, and it's no more time to say, I'll be back for the Terminator franchise. What are your thoughts out there on the Terminator franchise? Are you still interested in seeing any more Terminator films, even though there's been a very bad result so far this weekend when it comes to Terminator Dark Fate and its results at the box office. Share us your thoughts at popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. If you see something foreseeable in the future for the franchise, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, before we head to the break, my friend, I want to ask you this. Hold on. Do you hear this? Do you hear that? Do you hear that? That's me patting myself on the back, my friend. You know why?
I have a feeling you're about to tell me.
You are darn tootin' right, my friend, because very early on, this man here said the Joker, it wasn't really much of a stretch, my friend, but the Joker would become the biggest R-rated movie of all time. And sure and begorra, it did, my friend, because it is now well over $900 million. It's about $930 million, worldwide that it's garnered. It may, it's not a certainty, but it may earn over $1 billion worldwide, which is an amazing fact because before last week, Deadpool 2 was the highest grossing film. Speaking of Deadpool 2, was the highest grossing R-rated film worldwide at a little over $780 million. So I ask you, my friend, let's just speculate and say maybe that the Joker will not make $1 billion. It might not, but let's say it just doesn't make the $1 billion. Do you see a day when an R-rated film earns and generates $1 billion worldwide at the box office?
I see that we're definitely getting close to it. Like when that will happen, I don't know, but is it possible? Sure. Anything's possible if it's an R-rated, because we got to look at why films are rated R. Like you have a lot of R-rated films that are just grotesque or raunchy for the sake of being grotesque or raunchy. But if you have a film that is R-rated, but it's well written, it has a purpose for being R-rated, it's not R-rated just for the sake of being that, then yeah, I definitely think that it has the potential to reach $1 billion. Joker, how much did you say Joker made?
Joker right now is sitting at $934 million. It is at $299 million domestically. It's still not the biggest R-rated movie all time here in the U.S., but because international sales have been so good, it's going to gross over $300 million here in the U.S. But even if it doesn't become the biggest movie here, the biggest R-rated movie here in the U.S., it still has done so much worldwide that it has not only beaten Deadpool 2 to become the biggest R-rated movie all time, it has trounced it by leaps and bounds. And right now it's sitting at $934 million.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty close. If you have something that, say, it hits home harder than Joker does, and yeah, I don't think that it'll have any issue crossing that $1 billion mark.
I always thought there would be a glass ceiling. I always thought there would be a hard ceiling because I thought the $780 million Deadpool 2 had generated, I thought that was just for an R-rated film, probably the max. You maybe could have squeezed 800 million. This has far exceeded what I thought it would do. I mean, once I said that this movie would become the highest grossing film, this would become the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. I didn't think it would even come close to $1 billion. I thought maybe 800, 825, just a little bit over Deadpool 2. This has blown it away by leaps and bounds, and it looks like it's a possibility that it could be $1 billion maker. But even if it doesn't, it shows the possibilities that there are out there for an R-rated film. I know a lot of these Hollywood companies have shied away from going in that direction for maybe a franchise or a genre that normally caters to PG-13, like a superhero movie. So this to me is very interesting on where it could go. Could we see more sci-fi movies? Could we see more superhero movies? Could we see more films that are not traditional in that sense as far as being in that R-rated radius? Could we see them all trying to go ahead and become an R-rated film because they think that pushing the envelope in that fashion now gets people in the theaters watching their movie.
Wait, sorry. Phrase that into a question. What were you asking?
Okay. Could the attitudes change? Could the success of the Joker change the thinking with Hollywood? And now maybe films that were once garnered or earmarked for a PG-13 now might be pushed towards an R-rated film, because it seems like people are actually more willing to go see an R-rated film in some fashion, just because of the fact that, hey, this is something I want to see in its full context. I'll never be able to go ahead and see it maybe at the way it was shown, the way it was meant to be shown, unless I go see it at the theater. So maybe being an R-rated movie is meant to be more special than a PG-13. So do you think that's the way Hollywood will start trending more and more films as far as for an R-rated, earmarking more and more films for an R-rated, for an R rating?
I don't see why they wouldn't, but what I wouldn't want to see is, filmmakers go, or studios going, we need to make this movie R if it was written to be a PG-13 movie, because you can tell when there are things thrown in there just for the sake of it being in there. And that's something I don't really want to see. And I don't think that the film industry can survive something like that. So yes, I definitely think it's possible, but they would have to start it out saying, okay, we want this to be an R-rated film. It needs to be birthed as an R-rated film and not be something that's adapted and then turned into an R-rated film. Like, because nobody wants to see, gore or nudity or any of that stuff just for the sake of seeing it. Like, all that stuff needs to serve a purpose, and like you see a lot of that on HBO shows, and that's because it's HBO, but it needs to have a purpose, if that makes sense. Like Deadpool, what makes Deadpool is that all the violence and swearing and all that stuff, it's over the top and it's aware of itself. Joker tackled a very serious issue, and Todd Phillips set out to make people uncomfortable and think about things, and he succeeded in doing that. So whatever reason that it is an R-rated film, it needs to be a good one.
I hope so, because I don't mind seeing an R-rated film. I just want it to be clear why it needs to be an R-rated film. If you're just pushing for that rating, or if you're just throwing stuff in there, like you said, if they're doing gore for the sake of gore, sex for the sake of sex, nudity, anything else, or language just to make it an R-rated film, then you're really not doing that film or your audience justice. I mean, if you're going there, back when you and I, in our younger days, going to see an R-rated film almost was like taboo, at some point, at a point in time where, oh my gosh, it was only reserved for those very few films that wanted to push the needle in a certain fashion. But maybe it's like a horror slasher film or something like, that had a whole bunch of swearing, and we knew ahead of time that had a whole bunch of swearing, something like that. Now it seems like we're seeing films from other genres being put in those contexts. I think Logan, was probably one of the different movies for me, because it was something that we saw in a different context where, we saw Hugh Jackman in the X-Men and all those movies. Then this became like an altered, different version of that. It certainly needed the R rating, and I think it's probably why the things in the movie endeared itself to a larger audience because of that. So I definitely think it was justified, but I don't want it to go ahead and be the norm. I like it still when an R-rated movie is like kind of like, in a sea of PG-13 movies and things of that nature, that we get an R-rated movie every now and then that can go ahead and still be very attractive to audiences. I don't want to see an R for the sake of R.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. Like, and nothing really irritates me more than having like kids who shouldn't be watching rated R movies quoting rated R movies, because it removes all the magic of the movie for me. Because I just think, how stupid that sounds. I start thinking, oh, how stupid that sounded when I saw it in the movie theater. So it needs to have a reason and like a baseline for being an R-rated film. I don't want to see anything over the top. Deadpool needs to be over the top. So there's a reason for that happening. Remember, they tried to do that with Hellboy, with this latest iteration of Hellboy, and they just turned it into something that it was never meant to be. And that's a clear example of why you shouldn't do something like that. So if it sets out to be R-rated for a reason, then that's fine. And I can totally see that. If they're tackling something, Joker tackles mental health. If there's a reason for that existing and happening, do it, yes, but don't like force it onto the screen, because that turns a lot of people off from watching the movie.
That it does, my friend. And let's hope there are more good movies who are justified in their reasoning for becoming an R-rated film, as opposed to just trying to push the needle and be an R-rated film just to make it an R-rated film. So hopefully it'll stand out and get a larger audience because of it. Because that not only denigrates the film itself, but also the audience that you hope to try and attract because of it. What are your thoughts out there on R-rated films? Also, as well, do you think an R-rated film will reach the $1 billion mark if the Joker doesn't? We'd love to hear your thoughts. PopCultureCosmos@yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, coming up next, Josh and I are going to be talking about Ant-Man. Looks like there's an Ant-Man 3 coming up in our near future at some point down the line. Is this something we need for the Marvel Cinematic Universe? We're going to be talking about that. Josh has also got a review of Children of Morta. And what are we looking forward to this Black Friday? We're going to talk about all that and more coming up right after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glasser coming right back at you here, along with my good friend, the destroyer of Cheetos himself, Josh Peterson. My friend, it just went through the wires as far as Variety and Hollywood Reporter and all that Peyton Reed, the director of the first 2 Ant-Mans, is coming back for a third. So something that I know Paul Rudd has talked about vaguely about, he wasn't sure if he was going to be coming back as in a movie. I know there was Evangeline Lilly had said, I'm not sure what the status was. Well, it looks like things are in a better direction as far as Ant-Man when an Ant-Man 3 is concerned. Although that's not a certainty. You and I both have seen Disney and Marvel gone ahead and scratched things off the list before in the past, but at this point in time, Ant-Man 3 could be on the way. So I ask you, my friend, and I've got some reasons why, for both yes and no on this question, but is there a need for another Ant-Man movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's still a lot
of... Not definitive, that's all I'll say.
I haven't really... I looked at that article yesterday, or the several articles that popped up, and I thought to myself, I feel like an Ant-Man 3 would have been really cool before Endgame, right? Because that kind of closed the chapter on a lot of those. And I don't think that Ant-Man 3 was planned when Endgame went through. I thought that they're probably trying to end it with Ant-Man 2. And then I also remember reading something about how they want to do a spinoff of just Wasp. So maybe that's what they're trying to do with this one. But I feel like anytime a big director approaches Disney about either, look at the case in point, Taika Waititi, right? Anytime a big director approaches Disney about possibly rounding things off or finishing their work with a certain character, that Disney's not going to tell them no. It's going to be if it's a solid idea and Disney believes in it, then they'll back it. They'll add it onto the schedule. Thor: Love and Thunder wasn't originally part of the next phase, and then it got added onto the slate. So I'm pretty sure that Peyton Reed has a good idea for this film. I'm just curious what it is, like what kind of story is going to be relevant to the MCU in a post Endgame world.
Because you got to remember, there's, we've already been to the quantum realm on 2 occasions already. And the fact is that the Ant-Man movies, we've talked about, you and I both have a good affinity for the Ant-Man films. They're both right there in the middle of the pack as far as, what movies that we like on our list. I think for me, it was around the middle of the pack. I think it was for you too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It wasn't my favorite, but it definitely wasn't anywhere near the bottom.
Yeah, same here. Wasn't anywhere near the bottom for me. And I think that's pretty much what it was for a lot of other people. But the thing is, they didn't generate, when you consider all the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, both of those films are on the lower end of the food chain when it comes to the money that they bring in. So this is not something that you could go ahead and say, all right, we need an Ant-Man 3 because it's going to make a ton of cash. It doesn't really have that kind of super box office returned history behind it. So it's very interesting to me to see why an Ant-Man 3 is still underway. I mean, because again, we've already been through the quantum realm twice. This is something that could be answered probably more in detail with the Doctor Strange movie and the multiverse and all that. So I want to ask you, my friend, what do you think, maybe with your vast comic book knowledge, could Ant-Man or an Ant-Man movie, how much could it signify at this point in time? Because the first two Ant-Man films were so integral as far as playing a key role in the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe. Where could it actually go from here?
That's an interesting question. Because hold on, I'm trying to think. Like there was a.
It is a hard question.
Yeah, because the quantum realm is still relevant. There's still a lot of questions that have gone unanswered about the quantum realm. Like what were the what would have happened if they went somehow went forward instead of backward? What other dimensions are out there? Are we going to be able to play with it? Because they're already talking about playing around with the idea of a multiverse, right? So maybe they're going to be able to dive into some of these other scenarios where one thing happened or one thing didn't happen. But I don't know. They kind of opened a box with like Michael Keaton, not Michael Keaton. Yeah, Michael Keaton, is that? Yes, and the mom and Evangeline Lilly is there now. It seems like there's a lot of places.
Michael Douglas.
Michael Douglas. Sorry, I don't want to say Keaton, but there's a lot of places they could go. My concern is that I don't know where they're going to be able to go without incorporating the other Marvel heroes, because a lot of the big Ant-Man stories have happened in conjunction with other story arcs. So I'm not really sure, as far as villains go. I know he has a lot of villains, but I don't remember a lot of stories that he has that don't have another hero in them in some form.
And the first two movies have been rather small in scale, haven't they?
Yeah. The first one especially is just kind of like a heist film. So, that being said, they've existed in their same thing. Like Ant-Man and Wasp existed in their own world, except for that post-credit scene, right, where he goes into the they get the snap happens. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like I hope that it kind of interweaves with the multiverse idea, but because it would be kind of cool to have all that stuff rounded out, like all the different. I love the idea of maybe having all the old superhero Marvel films over the years that have kind of failed a little bit, or franchises they've left behind, and use that to weave it together. Because I know there's been whisperings about like a Spider-Verse movie, and it'd be cool to kind of see like the threads of that being woven together in, through Ant-Man and the quantum realm and stuff like that. But
let's clear this up. You're not talking Into the Spider-Verse.
No, not Into the Spider-Verse, but
because they have announced a sequel that's coming in April. I think it's 2022, if I'm not mistaken.
2022. Yeah. No, I'm talking about like there's been mumblings on the internet. I've been reading a lot of articles where people are saying there's talks of maybe getting Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield to kind of reprise their roles and having all these universes come together in some form. So I'd love to see, Ant-Man be used for that purpose. But other than that, like the story, I have no idea where the story would go. I just I wouldn't mind seeing another Ant-Man film, but I don't really have any like thoughts on where it would go and what kind of villain it would be, how it would tie into everything. I don't even know what everything is right now, because the only post-Avengers Endgame film we've seen so far is Spider-Man, so we kind of don't really know a lot at this moment.
And I think you hit it right on the head, my friend. I think you said, I wouldn't mind seeing an Ant-Man film, another one in the series. I just don't know why it exists. I just don't know why it comes out. I don't know what purpose it's going to serve. That, I think, is the problem, because you can't go back into the quantum realm again and have fans going, ooh, it's interesting. It's what we want to see, unless there's a purpose to it. And I don't know what purpose is going to be served by going back and dealing with that. Or is something else going to be created, like you were talking about with Michael Douglas's character, Hank Pym, maybe Evangeline Lilly, that maybe Michelle Pfeiffer's character, something, with Janet Van Dien, maybe something between those lines of them coming up with something else outside of the realm of the quantum realm, maybe in order, maybe in store for audiences in an Ant-Man 3, but in an Ant-Man 3 film. But I don't know, my friend. I'm just kind of puzzled because, again, this is something I know you and I have spoken before. I think the Ant-Man films or the Ant-Man character is kind of like a pet project for Marvel. It's something that no matter how well or no matter how not so well it has done, it's been always those films for like, they really like Ant-Man, even though the basic general audiences for the most part, like, it's Ant-Man. It's not a big deal for us. So I don't know. I think this is I've always said, I think the Ant-Man films are more for Marvel than they are for the audience. And I think because an Ant-Man 3 is coming out, I think that's proving more and more to be the case. Am I wrong?
No, there's definitely an affinity for the character amongst Marvel. I just don't, with audiences not being as receptive to Ant-Man, I'm just curious. I feel like they wouldn't keep pushing Ant-Man unless there was a reason for it in their grander plans. And I don't know if Marvel went to Peyton Reed or Peyton Reed went to Marvel, but I want to know more about the story before I make any like predictions about what it's going to be.
Maybe they threatened to put Kevin Feige into the quantum realm unless they greenlit an Ant-Man 3. What do you think?
Isn't he already kind of in the quantum realm? Like, he's working in so many different universes.
He might feel on Sunday morning like he was in the quantum realm after that kind of maybe hangover between the Marvel universe, the Marvel TV universe, and Star Wars. Now he's dabbling in. So my gosh, as the busiest man on the planet, busiest man on the face of God's green earth, he might actually be in his own quantum realm. But Ant-Man 3, it has been well, I don't say it has been greenlit, but director Peyton Reed has been signed on to go ahead and see what he can come up with an Ant-Man. Will it be a certainty? Until I see a Comic-Con or a D23 where it is announced as part of the lineup for Phase 5, which I think an Ant-Man 3 would fit in. I'll have to wait and see until that actually comes onto the screen. Because Peyton Reed has been signed on to go ahead and be part of Ant-Man 3 doesn't officially mean that there's an Ant-Man 3, in my opinion, because of the fact that there's the money and everything involved. I'm just still kind of nervous. If you're an Ant-Man fan out there, I would still be kind of nervous that until you see it right there on the screen at a Comic-Con or D23, that it will still come to fruition.
I also think that Marvel has an obsession with rounding out their characters in threes. So there's a lot of trilogies with the mainline heroes. So I wonder if maybe that has something to do with it as well.
Could be. It could be, but then again, Thor's on number 4. So there you go.
Yeah, 4 I feel was very unplanned. It just, if Taika Waititi hadn't expressed interest, I don't think Thor 4 would have happened.
Yeah, that's probably true in the development of Thor's character over the course of Thor Ragnarok and where it goes from here, and obviously what he did in Endgame as well. So we'll have to wait and see what plans Marvel truly has for Ant-Man, and hopefully there will be an Ant-Man 3 that comes to fruition because we like the films. We just don't know what the Ant-Man films at this point, what kind of purpose the Ant-Man films served at this point for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What are your thoughts out there on a possible Ant-Man 3? Are you excited for it? Are you not excited for it? Do you even care? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Before we head to our final break, my friend, I want to ask you, you've been playing Children of Morta. That's right, Children of Morta on the Xbox One. It's been something I guess you've been playing with now for a little bit. I want to hear your thoughts on your time spent with Children of Morta.
Okay, so Children of Morta is a roguelite. So for those of you that don't know what a roguelite is, kind of a top-down style game. So I like this game a lot. I like the music, the background. It feels like an RPG of yesteryear. You know, it has, well, it's not like the same mechanics as like Octopath Traveler. They kind of took the same route. You know, they tell the story from a few different perspectives, and it has a story that you actually care about, and it weaves a narrative for a lot of these characters that you play as. It feels organic, it feels natural. You start out as a warrior with a sword and a shield, and you get into the environment. Everything kind of moves a little bit. There's a lot of music. The sword play is cool. It's fun, but I do have an issue with some of the mechanics, like the dodge mechanic. You can only dodge one way. Like, you don't roll, you just kind of skirt backwards, and it doesn't really do a lot. So I have a bone to pick with that. But other than that, like the combat feels really smooth. I love that if you're paying attention, you can find little alternate paths off the main path. So it kind of leads you where it wants you to go. And then you get to these areas where there's like gates. So it's basically, I don't know if you ever play Yonder Cloudcatcher Chronicles, but there's like areas where mist blocks you from going places. And this one, it's like a purple slime, and you get stuck. You fight off enemies, and you get to these slime barriers, and you get to go through them to move to the next part of the map. So I was really enjoying this game. I'd gotten about 45 minutes into it, and from what I understand, it's like a 2.5-hour game. So I got about 45 minutes in, and then the game glitched. So you're supposed to take out this enemy. He drops something that lets you open one of these gates. And I took out the enemy, and he didn't drop what I needed. So now I have to start the game all over again to try to get back to that point, and hope that at this time it drops what it needs to. So I know I'm playing an early build of the game, but from what I understand, other people who have the same build haven't been having that issue. So that would be my main complaint. Other than that, like, I do enjoy the game. I love the story, love the music. It feels like an RPG of yesteryear. If you're a fan of roguelites, like, I would definitely recommend picking it up. Like, it does feel very well rounded in character development and gameplay. Besides like the few bugs and the big glitch that I encountered, it is a game that I think is worthy of your time. I'm not sure how much it costs to retail, but I have enjoyed my time so far with it. I would like to talk about it more on another episode once I get through the entire narrative. But so far I'm digging it, except that I have to start it over again.
Well, the retail value is $29.99, just to let everyone know out there. So it's something that it is a budgeted title, so to speak. It's not a full $60 retail game. So it looks like something that is keeping your attention. I hope to hear your thoughts more in detail, hopefully in an upcoming episode, or even better yet, you've got a review that you got to write on it. So when do you think you could go ahead and put it on paper to send it up there at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com?
I can't make any promises. I want to get it up this week sometime, so be on the lookout for that. I definitely want to have it done by next weekend, though.
Fair enough. You can look for that at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, where you can already check out our great review that Jamie Monroy put up there in regards to Frostpunk on consoles. He put a review up there just this past weekend. Then also as well, you're going to be seeing in the near future a review for the Helm Audio True Wireless 5.0 wireless earbuds, which I mentioned on our previous episode, the PCC Multiverse. So if you want to get a sneak peek of what I wrote about there, check our most recent Multiverse episode out there, or you can check it out this week on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. Coming up next, we're going to be talking about what we're hoping to go on sale this Black Friday, and our 10 favorite films, and we'll have a reason why we're talking about our favorite movies coming up right after the break. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. If you need a listing of where we're at, because we're being played all around the world, 7 days a week on radio stations worldwide, you can check out our listings today at Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, where you'll see a listing of many of our over 30 different podcast options as well. My friend, you've got a great thing going on. You've got a great thing continuing with your awesome book, Congratulations, You Suck. So I want to hear the latest and greatest. Why do people need to get a copy of your awesome book, Congratulations, You Suck?
Because I would really appreciate it. It's doing pretty well, getting reviewed pretty well. So definitely check it out if you're interested. The book tackles a lot of stuff about mental health, and the feedback has been a lot more positive than I thought it would be. So you can pick it up on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Powell's Books, BookLocker.com, and various formats. I was going to do some readings, but the publisher is being a pain in the butt. So it just helped me if you could pick up a copy, share it, review it. Even if you don't like it, please post a review anyways. I am incredibly grateful to anyone who's already done that. And yeah, I'll keep you guys posted on all my future adventures.
That's again, Congratulations You Suck, which is now available on BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, the Nook, the Kindle, and you can just go pick up a copy when you go down and ask for it by name at Barnes & Noble. Congratulations You Suck. My friend, it's been a great episode. We've got a couple more things to talk about. First off, you know what? Let's go with the movies. And I realize that there's a lot going on. It's busy this time of the year. A lot of stuff going on. Winter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, all that stuff going around the corner. But I wanted to go ahead and take this opportunity now that we're done with our top 200 list of the top 200 video games of all time list that you can check out now on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. I thought of adding a new list to the fray, and I want to go ahead and hear from our listeners and our followers out there on their top 10 favorite films of all time. I kind of mentioned it on a previous episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, everyone. So first off, before we talk again about our favorite films, I want to go ahead again and ask if you can. This month, we're going to be taking in all your lists for the top 10 favorite films of all time in your choice. So we're going to make a big old list one more time. But first, you need to send us a list of all your favorite films, the top 10 favorite films of your choice. You want to go ahead and send us that top 10 list at Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, Game Source, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Send it any way you can, your top 10 films in order, so we can go ahead and make a good list from there. My friend, I want to give everybody a taste of what our thoughts are on our favorite films. So go ahead, my friend, with your list of your top 10 films of all time.
All right. So this was a really difficult question. These are kind of in order, but the order could change, depending on how I'm feeling. This is my order right now of my top 10 favorite films.
Well, that's a list that's going to have to be because of the fact that it would be scaled on a 1 to 10 basis.
Yeah, no, I know that. So as of this moment in time, this is my 1 to 10 basis of my favorite films.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah, someone asked me today, what my favorite genre of film is, and I kept thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't have a favorite genre. I just like movies. If the movie appeals to the things I like, it could be a comedy, it could be a documentary, a horror film. If it has all the elements that I like, then I dig it. I don't go looking for any specific genre. But all right, without further ado, you want me to start at 10 or you want me to start at 1?
Let's start with 10, going from 10 to 1.
Okay, number 10 on my list, I got Snatch. That is one of my all-time favorite films. It got me into all the Guy Ritchie films. I actually went back and watched Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels after 10. And it's still today, I'm inspired by Guy Ritchie, especially when in my book, if you look at anything I write or even see any the Ghost Toaster stuff that I've done on YouTube, everything has really fast cuts and the dialogue is really quippy. And that's something that I learned watching Guy Ritchie films just over and over and over again over the years is I love what the guy has done with dialogue and just his ability to get it to flow so well and still be very quirky. Aladdin's a different story, so we won't open that bag of cats, but he's been a very inspirational source for me when it comes to creating things. Do you want to share your 10 or do you want me to just go through my list?
Go through your list and I'll go through mine. How about that?
Okay, cool. Number 9, I got Princess Mononoke. This was always one of my favorite animated films. I remember the first time I saw it and hearing the voice, I'm like, oh, there's Billy Bob Thornton's in this and yada yada. I just remember sitting back and watching this. How is it that this cartoon showed more depth for these actors and actresses than any live action film that they've ever been in. So I remember sitting there watching that being blown away because it has the story and the soundtrack and the animation is so beautiful and crisp, and it just, I fell in love with the characters, and like even to this day I can watch this movie over and over again. You know, granted it's kind of a little more gory than some of the other films the director has done, but it's got heart to it. It's got a lot of heart to it, and in a time when people aren't watching, you know, there's not a lot of decent animes out there anymore. Princess Mononoke is a classic that kind of has still holds up even, you know, as many years later as it's been made. Okay, so number 8, I got Jurassic Park. You know, besides the obvious fact that dinosaurs are cool, I just, the John Williams soundtrack, like it hits me every time I see it, even if it's just a trailer or you know, just that first scene where they pull up on the hill, they see the dinosaurs, the soundtrack plays, it hits you, and you feel very emotional about the movie despite all the terror that's in it. Like it's just, there's something about it that grasps you. Signs is one that I didn't think would make my list, but I find myself like wanting to go back to this movie a lot. And this was M. Night Shyamalan. This was like the movie that I feel makes his career outside The Sixth Sense. This is the movie that like kind of put him on the map in my mind. And then he kind of went on to do things that failed or didn't fail, depending on what your perspective on the man is. But there's something about Signs. Like I love the theological arguments, like him always questioning the existence of God in this film, and does everything happen for a reason? And it's I've never seen anyone take in the concept of aliens and turn it into like a horror suspense type thing. So that was really cool to see. Number 6, I got Garden State. I love the way this film is written. I love the quirkiness of it. I'm not a huge fan of like Zach Braff and Natalie Portman, but I really did enjoy this. I love the soundtrack, love the shins. There's just, this movie it has a lot of heart and a lot of character. The Great Outdoors is at number 5. John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. Love this film. I love it. Just for some reason, out of all the movies that came out of that time, out of the 80s, like this is the one that I can keep going back to over and over again, just because it reminds me of a moment in time, reminds me of family vacations. It's one of those films. Do you ever watch those films that just make you feel warm inside? That's what The Great Outdoors does for me.
That's I mean, that's, yeah. There's quite a few films that make you feel that can make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. That's for sure.
Yeah, it just reminds you of simpler times. Number 4, I got Aliens. There's no really need to, beat that horse anymore. Like Aliens is just a fantastic movie. It was a product of the times. It still holds up well today, at least in my opinion. It is the film that I think defines that franchise. Number 3, I got Clerks. Kevin Smith, excellent with dialogue. He took this idea of a movie only having one location, and he was able to expand it into an hour-and-a-half film. So I love that. Love the black and white. Just I love that he was able to make a film based on the things that he loves, and people loved it. Like you don't see that anymore. A lot of, even in indie films, like a lot of people are scared to do stuff like that. So Kevin Smith, pioneer back then, still a pioneer today. Number 2 is Spring. It's a horror film that you can watch on Amazon Prime, but I don't know, I love the concept of, people getting to decide their own destiny. Like this. I don't even know how to explain this film. You need to go watch it. It's kind of half horror, half drama. It's got a little bit of, actually not really a comedy at all, but like the shots are beautiful, cinematography is beautiful, the story is very well written. It's a very artsy film, but it came together very well in my opinion. And then number 1, I got Kingdom of Heaven. The trailers were awful for this movie, but I can sit down and watch the actual film over and over and over again, just because it hits every checkbox for me when it comes to what I look for in movies. It's well written. It's got a good soundtrack. The characters all have depth. It's got a lot of theological stuff that really makes you think. Theology, philosophy. It's got everything in this film. It is the entire package, and it's long enough for you to be able to, turn it off, go do something, come back and watch it again. And it is the quintessential film in my opinion. But Gerald, I ask you, what are your top 10 favorite films?
Well, not only can you see my top 10 films, but you can see my list of the top 25 films that are my favorite, available today at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. But for this show, I'll just say my top 10. So if you want to see the rest of the list, check it out there. Let's start with number 10. And it is our 2017 movie of the year, and that is Blade Runner 2049. Speaking of Blade Runner, November 2019, all ties in some form of fashion. In one way, it all ties in one way or another. Number 9, Minority Report, excellent movie. Probably one of my actually it is my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. So that's just my opinion. Sorry out there for anybody else who likes something a little bit better, but I think Minority Report does it for me. Number 8, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. And this movie was one of the movies. This is the movie that I've laughed the most at in the theater. Thought it was just so hilarious, and the long list of future stars in this film, it just seemingly endless. I mean, my gosh, first off, you have Steve Carell, who is just starting to hit his stride, and this was his vehicle that, along with what he was doing on The Office, that catapulted him into superstardom. You have Paul Rudd, Catherine Keener, Seth Rogen, Elizabeth Banks, Jane Lynch, Jonah Hill, Mindy Kaling, Kat Dennings, Kevin Hart. All of these names went on to some level of stardom that I think just has to be seen to be appreciated. Romany Malco, he's had a long career after this movie. I mean, all these stars just really, you could see the kind of talent that they were exuding. They just took this helped a lot of those actors, a lot of those comedians go to a different level after this movie. And it's a really funny movie, but it has a good story. The ending, I know a lot of people think that's, it was kind of a cheesy little ending, but you know what? It worked for me. I think The 40-Year-Old Virgin works as a great movie, I think, for a long time to come. And I think it's just something a lot of people will keep on watching again and again. Number 7, the rebooted Star Trek, I think was a very, very good movie. It is J.J. Abrams' best. I love it. It's very slick, cut very well. Yes, to me, it just is a good movie throughout, and just is an entertaining ride. It just seems to me like a really, really good movie. To me, it's a really, really good movie. Number 6, Captain America: Winter Soldier. It is our pick. It is my pick for the top movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I don't even think it's close. This is a great movie. It's a spy movie. It's an action movie. It's a superhero movie, all rolled up into one. And I think it couldn't be, and I think it is right now, in my opinion, going to be tough to beat in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Number 5 is Lord of the Rings: Two Towers, which I think is the best Lord of the Rings movie. I know a lot of people love Return of the King. I know there's a lot of love for Lord of the Ring, the Fellowship, Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. But you know what? The Two Towers, I think, had to do more as far as, and that's what a lot of movies that have, are the middle in a trilogy have to do. They have to not only build upon what was done in the first movie, try to go ahead and set up the third movie very well, but still, in its own self-contained film, try to do the best it can to entertain an audience, and I think it did a great job of that. North by Northwest, and again, I think I'm going to probably make a lot of people mad out there, but this is Hitchcock's best movie, and I think it brought on, and I think I don't know if you want to say invented, but it really got started, and it kickstarted the big budget action thrillers that we see today every summer, every spring, every fall, that we can count on seeing those type of films. I think North by Northwest was one of the first films to really use that traditional formula to get that action thriller going. And I really, excuse me, I think it's a great, I think it's an awesome movie. It's a great time. I actually got to see it in the theater. I got to see it in the theater, last year, and I really just enjoyed it there, and I've enjoyed it every time I watch it. And I do think it's Alfred Hitchcock's best film. Number 3 is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. there's going to be a theme going on because the sequels, when you have a really great sequel, as Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan was, especially after the original Star Trek movie was such a slog. This movie was a breath of fresh air. I enjoyed it throughout. Yes, Ricardo Montalban hammed it up so much in the movie, but he chewed every scene and was just absolutely brilliant. And to me, this is the best performance ever by William Shatner as Captain Kirk. So this just a great story throughout. And yes, Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan for me is number 3. Number 2, another sequel. It's Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, it is considered the best Star Wars movie ever, and I don't think it's even close. I think Star Wars is a great film in its own right, but I think Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back is even better because it does everything I talked about that a sequel should do, and I think it sets the standard for many years to come on how you go ahead and build that second movie in a trilogy. And this definitely works as a great movie in and of itself. And I've already told you the stories before, when I was a kid and I watched this. This is one of the first movies I actually watched in theater, and I talked about the whole experience and all that. So not only is it something that I will always remember as a kid, but it's something I've gone back to and watched as a film, and as a critique, it's just truly an amazing film in and of itself. And number 1 for me, speaking of November 2019 one last time, it is Blade Runner. It's just, to me, it's just, as I said on my article, it's a masterpiece. And I think it is Ridley Scott's best film. And I think it's definitely, sorry, Josh, it wasn't, what a coincidence that both of us have Ridley Scott films, but there are two totally different types of films. I think this is his best film. I know you'll disagree with me on that, but we still both have a great love for everything going on within the realm of Blade Runner.
I love that you covered both Blade Runner films because they are masterpieces. I mean, they're each kind of their own thing, but they are two very excellent films. The biggest shame to me ever is that we probably won't ever get to see another Blade Runner film. So I love that you covered both of those. Some of the ones you mentioned, I'll have to go back and watch. Like, I've never seen North by Northwest, so I would love to sit down and watch that at some point. But yeah, no, I think your list is pretty solid. And where can we find it again if we want to read it?
It's available now at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. But we are also, along with you, hopefully reading that, are looking for your votes all this month on the top 10 films in your list all time. Because we're going to make a big collection again, like we did with the video games. So we need your list sent to us, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com or popculturecosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source, any of our social media. Send it to us if you can, please. All this month, your top 10 picks on your top 10 favorite movies of all time. All right, my friend, it's been a great episode. We've had a lot to talk about. I cannot thank you enough for staying up with me and talking about a lot of great pop culture. We got some great stuff coming for everyone out there on our Friday episode of the PCC Multiverse. I know a lot of people will be talking about Death Stranding. There's going to be a lot of talk about what's going on in the realm of pop culture. I think also as well, Josh, I think I'm going to have to create a special episode either on the Pop Culture Cosmos or the Multiverse, just on the streaming options, because with Disney Plus coming out on the horizon, I think we need to go ahead and sit down, get some other people's opinions on it as well, on the streaming genre and all that. I think we're going to have to talk about that in an upcoming episode. Plus our Black Friday stuff is coming as well. So it's going to be a loaded month right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. Speaking of Black Friday, before we head on out, what are you looking forward to this Black Friday?
Video games and movies. I'm kind of collector of both, but like there's a few games coming out but have been out that I've wanted to pick up. Control is one of them. The Spider-Man game on PS4. There's some of the Forza games. Like there's a lot of games out there that have come out that I haven't had time to play that I would like to be able to pick up. I'd like to see some more Switch games going on sale. But mostly I would love to see the Marvel Blu-rays go on sale, because anytime they go on sale, or at it actually go on sale, anytime you see them on sale at Target or anything, they're only discounted by like $2. So I'd love to see them, maybe go down to like $10, and then I could pick up, 4 or 5 of them. What are you looking forward to, though?
I would love to go see. I would love to see Best Buy drop that 4K set for $500. I'd love to see them drop the price on that bad boy, but I don't think they're doing that anytime soon on the entire Infinity Saga. So, as much as I would like to dream about that, I'd say as well video games for me because a lot of those games from September, like Borderlands 3 and Gears of War 5, those should be on sale at some nice prices. So that will definitely entice me and possibly going ahead and getting them. Plus, there's going to be a lot of electronics that are out there. Maybe arcade one-ups will actually be on sale more. I've got one. Maybe I'll pick up another. Maybe even at games, the Legends Ultimate Arcade. I know you've talked about that. I think hopefully they'll put that on sale. But there's a lot of other great stuff that's going to be on sale this coming Black Friday period. Hopefully going to be able to hopefully we're going to try and do what we can to cover it for you once again this year, right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.